Okay, so hello, welcome to another Zoom group. Um, let's start off by just kind of connecting with each other. So yeah, if you just close your eyes, even if you're watching this on video afterwards, you can still do this. You just close your eyes, and as soon as you close your eyes, you're pulling back from uh, existence, you could say. You're shutting off a sense and you're kind of coming more inside into your inner world. And if you just put your hands on, just rest them on your thighs and just kind of put your attention into the sensation in your hands as they rest on your thighs. And just become more aware of that sensation and how the front of your hands, the palms, that part, that feels different to the back of your hands. The sensation's different. And bring your attention to this sensation inside your thighs. It's almost like you're looking up, feeling your hands resting on top of your thighs. You can go back and forth. Feel the sensation in your hands and feel your hands resting on your thighs. Or you can feel the sensation of your thighs with your hands resting on them. You can kind of go back and forth between the two. Now if you bring your attention to the sensation in your face, sort of start in your forehead, between your two eyebrows, just above between your two eyebrows. It's kind of a natural confluence point there. And then you kind of radiate back from there across the rest of your face, down your cheeks, your lips. And you can sort of go between your hands to your face. And then when you're in the sensation in your face, when your attention is there, you could think of it being like, say, if you were in a wardrobe, you were sort of in the wardrobe and you were looking out through the door. There was a gap in the door, horizontal gap, and you could look out into the room. So you're in this kind of wardrobe, um, except you've got your eyes closed. And you have this feeling that the back of the wardrobe doesn't have a back anymore. That there's a big kind of space there. Or you could think of it like, I don't know if you've ever seen those movies where they have one of those pictures where it's like a portrait, but there's this secret kind of corridor behind it where people can take the eyes out from behind and look through and look into the room. You can have that kind of sense as well, that's what you were doing when your eyes were open. And now you're sort of pulling back into the corridor. So you're sort of going back from your body a little bit, pulling back from the light that you see through your eyes. And you're still with the sensation in your hands. And now, if you want to, you can actually reach your hands out on either side. Get a sense of reaching out to connect with someone, in this case, me. See if you can get a sense of me connecting with you. So you will be a bit familiar with the sensation in your own hands because you were just checking in with it. And now you're reaching out and seeing if you can sense something slightly different, which will be sort of my energy. Just in the tips of your fingers, see if you can feel something, some connection. And if you're watching this video, you can still do that. You can still get a sense of connecting with me. Because time, as you pull back from your body, time and space don't really count. You can do all sorts of lovely things like connect. Because once you pull back from this fascinating illusion that we all live in, or communicate through. Once you pull back from that, time doesn't operate the same way. So everything, it's not linear, time's not linear, it's all happening at the same time. So you can connect with me. So you can also connect with the other people in the group. So you can get a sense of them. And it's not, you're not limited to time and space. So you can connect with, lots of different people. You don't have to be standing around a big circle. It can be all at the same time. You can also connect with all the people who will watch the video. And if you're watching the video, you can connect with everyone who watched it before you and whoever is going to watch it after you. There's always people to connect with behind the scenes. There's always support. Okay, so you can just stay with that. You don't have to leave anywhere, or you can if you want. It's up to yourself. But yeah, when you're ready, just open your eyes. That can all go on. That can all keep going on. It doesn't have to stop. It can if you want, but it doesn't have to. You can still stay connected. The idea of going somewhere, again, it's a kind of a limited perspective. Okay, so does anyone have any, questions before? I much prefer to talk about or look at the sort of things that you're either having trouble with or curious about or concerned about, or what's of interest to you, rather than just what I want to talk about, because I don't really want to talk about anything ever. But I can talk about lots of different things. So yeah, if you've got a question, either you can text it through or you can turn your camera on, or just turn your mic on, whatever you like. And I'd much rather address your things than mine.
What is further? I just got your book, so I haven't started it yet. What is further emergence? What are we here for? What is the end game? What are we? Let's just go with the big questions.
Yeah. Well, Further Emergence is just a name I've used because they have to use names. So it is a name for the process of inner growth. And not just normal inner growth, but the sort of growth spurts that happen inside. So when you're a kid, you grow, your body grows, and you go through growth spurts. And everyone understands that. Like, oh yeah, there's Jimmy. I saw him last week or 2 weeks ago, and now he's 2 inches taller, 3 inches taller. And if you've no kids, you'll have seen that yourself. So your body, once you reach maturity, your body stops growing like that. It stops growing in spurts like that. It goes into a different kind of thing. But inside, the process still goes the same. You still grow, and then sometimes you grow in spurts. And you could say that the overarching process is further emergence. We're all kind of emerging further into consciousness. But when you go through a growth spurt, an inner growth spurt, it can be really disorienting. So, because of everything that's happening at the moment, it's like everybody or a lot of people are going through intense inner growth spurts all at the same time. And one of the things about those kind of inner growth spurts are it can be really disorienting, and it can manifest in lots of different ways. It can manifest physically as physical symptoms, and they can be anything, any kind of symptoms. Usually, they're not life-threatening. They're just really debilitating, and they have the kind of quality of putting your life on hold. And if you've had them for a while, they will have you'll have gone around the doctors, you'll have tried all the usual kind of things to get a result and get through get it to stop, with no success. But yet your life is still kind of on hold. That's often how it will manifest physically. And then if it's not physically, it will just be a feeling of, people have said things like, I feel like I'm losing my mind, or I feel like, I don't know who I am anymore. It can feel like your life can suddenly feel like a shoe that doesn't fit anymore, and it's just kind of you feel like you're just flopping around in it. It can have the feeling of catching a reflection and not recognizing yourself, and all sorts of other things like that. So that's generally what further emergence is about. And then, because I've gone through that process myself many times, and because I've helped other people go through it, lots of times, and because of everything that's happening just generally in the world, that's what this is all about. So I do the daily meditations, which is just a chance to meditate together. I do these Zoom groups where people can ask questions, and um, get some reflection, or I can just sort of pass on, well, this is my perspective, or this is what I've experienced. And then I work one-to-one with people as well, which is kind of, the most kind of close quarters kind of work. Um, does that answer your question, or do you have any other?
My whole life I've been aware that this is going on. And I got my first book on the occult and astral traveling as a kid off of back of the comic book. So, and I was always interested in ancient Egypt, and I would always have dreams that would happen, that would come true, or I'd be floating over my roof at like wee hours of the morning, as you'd say. Like, why? This is weird, because you don't just dream of looking down on your own house at twilight. So what is happening? And then I've joined spiritual groups and meditated and had very intense things, and then just wanted nothing to do with it. And then my life is lacking if I'm not in a spiritual pursuit. But there's times when it just gets to overwhelm, or as you said, physically overwhelming. I
Yeah.
just, you find that it's not, the people aren't what you thought, like genuine. So, I kind of always been a loner in that sense. I've never really found a genuine group or genuine people I can connect to.
Yeah.
A few here and there, but pretty much on my own. My parents don't get it. My friends don't get it. It's just kind of always been me, and this is my shtick. So, listening to you and seeing you constantly on, which I found you because you're, of all the art stuff you do, and I'm an artist, I'm a painter, but there's always that voice in the back of my head that's like, yes, you've got to meditate, you've got to get back to that, or to that place of who you really are. When I was a child, I used to cry. Cry because I wasn't home. I knew I wasn't home. I was somewhere where I wasn't supposed to be, and I would cry and cry. And I'm adopted, so that didn't help. But apart from being adopted, but I was also aware that like, this doesn't make sense to me. And I lived in Europe for many years. I love Baroque music. I love very old, old things, old European things, and then, ancient Egypt. And so I do feel like part of me doesn't even belong here at all. So yeah, if you can give me any help or guidance, or this group can give me any sort of, what do you call it? Like a relief, or help to feel that I'm not so out of place, that's awesome.
Right. Okay. Well, how are you doing with it? Like, have you come to terms with it all, or you still feel out of place, or?
Right now, the past couple of years, I started doing intense like sport dancing, physical stuff. I was never physical as a kid. Never. I couldn't do a cartwheel. I mean, I was nothing. And now I'm doing really physical stuff, and I have kids of my own. But, just like life is like that. I just find that it'll take you in a direction. And you'd be like, okay, this is what I'm supposed to be doing now. And I just go with it. Like, okay, I know I'm meant to be doing this right now. I've always painted. I've always had that as my expression. I'm terribly dyslexic and I can't read. I'm not a great reader. I don't write very well, but paint, visuals for me are something that I connect to. So yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, am I doing okay? I'm doing okay, but I don't know really where I'm supposed to be or how I can get more to that sense of I had a teacher for many years named Master Choa Koksui, who did pranic healing, energy healing, and I taught energy healing and meditation. I believe he was the real deal. We had different types of meditations. So we had some that you just focused in on the light, some where you did the guided, some where you just conducted energy through your body. So these were all for him. Like he had like a roadmap, like you need all these different parts to get to where you want to go. Build the machine. And I don't know, this is a new approach for me. So I'm open to learning and figuring out how I can get more to be the true me that or feel okay with being the true me.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, um, the time of teachers is, it feels like it's over, or certainly the time of gurus, and even the idea of a teacher. That feels like that's finished to me. Just generally, it feels like everybody has the world has changed, consciousness has changed, and now it feels like everybody is just helping each other much more so than I am the master and I know all the answers and I'm going to pass them on. And I think that's to do with growth in consciousness, where certainly this is the way it looks to me. And this is really what I'm doing. I'm not teaching, in that kind of way, because that feels like the old way. I'm just sort of saying, well, this is what I've come through, and this is what is my experience, and this is what it looks like to me. Um, Fully aware that that's all it could be, is just the way things look to me, because it feels like that we are, collectively beginning to realize that there's no real, there's no ultimate truth. There's no third reality. The thing of like, well, there's my reality, there's my truth, your truth, and then the real truth. I think we're slowly starting to realize there's no real truth. It's all very subjective. And if so, my truth is my truth, and your truth is your truth, and both are valid, even though they might be completely uh, very different. So when I'm kind of saying things, it's coming from that place of, well, this is just the way it is in here, in my little bubble of reality. And I think as the more we kind of move away from that, no, there is an ultimate truth, like that's the sort of thing wars are fought about and people get really upset about and fight each other about, because both sides think they know what the real truth is. And the more we let go of that, the more we come into the very unpleasant feeling of uncertainty, and that nothing is hard and fast, and even what was true yesterday is changing. And if unless we can be nimble and responsive and poised, we're going to get attached to yesterday's thoughts and yesterday's realizations and miss out on what's coming today, you know.
Certainly feels like there's no set truth right now in the world and what you see in the news. And it's I've never experienced such a time where there's just nothing seems certain.
Yeah. Well, I think that's kind of what I was talking about with everyone's going through growth spurts, and depending on how conscious they are, they'll either, I mean, it's disturbing for everybody, but if you were very invested in certainty in the past, it's going to be very painful for you right now because everything, I'm not saying you, I'm talking about if one was very invested in certainty, it'd be very difficult now because everything is changing. Everything is being taken away. You know, that, so there's very little where you can be certain about anything, and that's, in my experience, that's actually the truth. Like that's the way things really are. That the idea that excuse me, if I get a, if I get a good job, or if I get a nice house, I'm going to be happy, or if I get, if I marry this person, it's going to be forever. If I, my kids are always going to love me, or all those kind of things. Anything that people think of as certain is being taken away and changed. Like say even with the way everything has changed with COVID. Things, the world that we are in now compared to this time last year is so different. It's so unimaginably different. Like back then, if you told somebody, if you traveled forward in time and said, "Oh, this is the way it's going to be this time next year," they wouldn't have believed you. Nobody would. And yet here it is. So unless you're quite flexible and you quite easily can let go of things, that's going to be very disturbing. And you can, that's the sort of thing you see in the news is what's disturbing. So a lot of what's in the news is fear and anxiety, which is understandable. But then if you are drawn to this kind of looking and examining things, then I think you have an advantage because you're used to it. Like I was saying this last week or the week before, like even like none of the uncertainty side of things is new for me. All that's new for me is that it's just happening on the outside. And so it's like, it's not that different for me, you know? And that's one of the reasons why, like I've talked a lot in the past about, you know, letting go of assumptions about things. The more you let go of assumptions and come into what your direct experience is, rather than being told from outside and believing things, and not, I don't mean religious things, but just very fundamental things, the more you begin to really see what an illusion that we are living in. And it's like, well, what does that matter? Why does it matter that we're living in illusion? Like, surely there's more important things. But it's like, because everyone is so distressed by the illusion, it feels like, watching a movie with somebody who's getting really, disproportionately distressed about the movie. I feel like, the person beside them going, it's just a movie. Like, we're just here to enjoy the movie. I know this is a scary bit, but it's just a movie. It's all right. There's a big world out there behind, you know.
That's how I felt this morning when I woke up. I was in the middle of a dream and something was happening, like the building was falling over, something very dramatic, which my dreams aren't usually that like violent. And I was, very, oh my gosh. And I woke up and I was like, oh, it's, like you're kind of in the dream, but you're awake. And I have read a lot about waking up in a dream, and I'm somebody that likes my sleep, so it's hard for me to do that. But there's something, I don't know if that's something you think is important, is trying to, or is it just living and being aware that's going to help you to wake up?
Um, well, I'm more interested in where I go after I dream. Because for me, I go, like I'll close my eyes and I'll be thinking. And then I'll be thinking about the things of the day. And then the things of the day become more extreme. So I might be thinking about, say, driving down the road. Oh yeah, I was in town today. I drove in, and then I start thinking, oh, I often wondered what my car would look like if it was a different color. And then suddenly my car will be a different color. So the thoughts like transition into dreams, and then I'll dream, and then my dreams go through there's a kind of a pathway through my dreams where it'll start off and it's me and the things in my life. Maybe I can fly, maybe I can go through a wall, maybe I can chop off my arm and then stick it back on again. But it's still me and the people I know, and then they'll become more impersonal, and I'll be in a dream where everybody knows me and I on one way know everybody, but another part of me is like, who are these people? And I think I'm a woman, and very impersonal and different. But then I drop out the bottom of that into deep dreamless sleep, and that's where I'm interested in, because it feels like what I was saying earlier on, like that existence, or this this what we're in, is like looking through those like looking through that painting. Did you know what I meant by that painting thing with the those, when you see it in a movie, like somebody takes the there's it's like they're spying into the room through this portrait. So I'm sort of looking into this, and then when I close my eyes and I start to pull back my senses, I'm going deeper and deeper. So I'm kind of more curious about, where do I go? Where do I go when I go into that dreamless sleep place? Very curious about that. Um, and where was I before I came into being? Very curious about that as well. So when I meditate, that's where my intention is, because everything else just seems like a distraction. In as much as can be a distraction, um, mainly because it's out of balance. Like, this takes up so much time. I wake up in the morning and it's on. And it's just relentless till I go to sleep again. So that's one of the reasons I meditate, is to balance this with what I know is a deeper kind of truth, that what this feels like is the most superficial. This is the least true thing in my existence. And then the further back from it I get into more and more truth. It's, in my experience, that's why dreams are so intense, and why, for example, the fear I experience in a dream is always more intense than the fear I experience when I'm awake. So if I was in a car, if I was in a near collision in real life, in the what we call real life, um, that even though that's a terrifying thing to go through and would have repercussions, the fear I experience in a nightmare is way worse than that. So it's like, the further back I get, the more real things get. And the realest place for me is in that mysterious place where there's no language and there's no mind and there's no thoughts and there's no me in the way that I know myself to be. So when I'm meditating, I'm trying to balance balance this, fascinating illusion with a bit of reality, bit of deeper reality. And my intention is to sort of pass through all those layers and really interesting stuff that, dreams or psychic things and all that kind of stuff. But my focus is to go into this deep, mysterious, possibly eternal place, that, when I wake up from in the morning, I'm refreshed. So somewhere I have this knowing of all this stuff, and it seems like the process of my life is informing my consciousness, my frontal kind of awareness, the bit that engages, the bit that's talking to you now, of this deeper part. That feels like what's going on.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think it's all a matter of trying to get to that place. I mean, I know when I meditate for a regularly, the meditations get deeper, and there's a place where you get and you see things, or you get past that. But I mean, certainly you're the first person I've ever heard say, where was I before I was born? What was that nothingness? Because to me, I was an atheist or didn't believe in God or anything, because I'm like, wait, because you're nothing before you're born. So where are you going to go to after you die? But then I think there's got to be something in between that. So it's a really good question.
Yeah. Well, like to me, where do I go when I sleep, and where did I come from? They're the same thing, because I've been told, I've been told a lot about this illusion, and that's what I was saying about dropping assumptions. So I've been told there was time before me, but I've no experience of that. So I'm not denying it. I'm not saying, oh no, it all started when I came into consciousness, or came into being. But I don't. It's a funny kind of paradox. It's just a story to me, like dinosaurs and Egypt and all that kind of thing. It's. I'm not denying it, but I'm also not believing it. Meaning, I don't. I've no experience of it. So it's like, oh, okay, you're saying there was something before me. Oh, okay, well, I've no experience of that. So that's just something you're telling me. So I'm not disbelieving you, but I'm classifying it as what it is. It's something you're just telling me, you know? And, but it's this, like, I do the same with, things that happen when I'm asleep. Like if somebody, tells me, or say countries I've never been to is a better example. Like say Bermuda. Have I been to Bermuda? No, I've never been to Bermuda. So for me, Bermuda doesn't really exist. Somebody, could say, look, I was born in Bermuda. Of course it exists. And I go, well, that's great. I'm not doubting you. It's just a story to me. I've never experienced it. So um, letting go of assumptions, or seeing them clearly, helps me see the gaps in plain sight of the illusion, which helps me not take it so seriously, and helps me connect to deeper parts of me, and helps me discern what actually is important in existence. Because along with all the other things that I'm kind of been told, there's a lot of things that I'm told about in existence that are important, like money and politics and you know stuff that doesn't seem that important to me at all. Whereas what I've come to see is that what's really important is communication, because that's the only thing that seems to penetrate from, if this illusion is like a spherical kind of ball that we all look into and wave at each other across, then the communication that happens inside existence, or this illusion, is that's real. And the love that is communicated, and communication and love can be similar as well. So I think that's important. That's real, because that comes through existence into inside me. But everything else seems a bit, I don't take it that seriously, and not in a casual, callous kind of way. I mean, there's great distress going on at the moment. I really feel for everybody who is in such distress, and there's all sorts of terrible things going on. But then there's all sorts of lovely things going on as well, in the world and in existence and in the illusion. Sorry, I thought
Connection.
you were.
It's
Sorry.
very strange. Are you here? Can you see me?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's very strange. I've been on quite a few Zoom meetings now, and my email window is popped up right next to you, so I'm looking at all of my emails and you. I've never had that happen. I don't know how to make it go away, but it's like, here's this and here's this distraction. I've never had that happen. But I do believe, connections. Like I've had dreams where when things are happening in the world that are horrible, being there and knowing that they're happening. So I know that there's connection, that we are all at a deep sense connected to each other. When people meditate together, even the short meditation we did the other day, I can, it does feel stronger because there is connection in that. There
Yeah.
is, definitely. Apart from that, what is important? I don't know. You're my children trying to live a good life and be a good person. I don't know what else we can do. But yes, this nagging question and feeling that I have of what spiritually should I be doing? What should I be achieving in this lifetime? If I do, after I die, have to face myself and see what I've done, what have I achieved, and what have I done what I'm supposed to do?
Yeah. Um, well, I'm laughing because it's a phrase I've been using a lot lately, and that's "you're doing great." How does that?
Well, I'm with you with the nothing is ever normal. I think I moved 10 times in like a 10-year period. Things are always changing. I mean, change for me, that's been my life. So, and just when I'm wanting things to slow down and to be,
Sorry, I don't know what's going on. 1 second, I don't know what is happening.
anyway, as I was
Yeah,
just saying, I completely am with you with the feeling that nothing is ever stays. They say the only constant is change, and that has been my life, and I do understand that, and so I do feel like to some degree this has been easier for me, and than maybe other people. My parents who are alive and well, thank God. My father's in the film industry, and they go out almost every night of the week. They're always busy, they're always traveling, doing things, seeing people, and this is the most they've ever had to be home in their entire life, I think. So
yeah,
that's been really, really challenging. And I do feel like if you are somebody that just says today is today, and yeah, I'm used to things always being different and never being when I expect them to be, you're in a better position.
yeah, yeah. So, one thing I find is helpful with that kind of question of how am I doing? Well, it's a very helpful process to look in the mirror and tell you and just say you're doing great and see how you feel about that. Because you do that and you'll suddenly become very conscious of all your judgments about yourself. If you're looking in the mirror and going, "You're doing great," and suddenly you'll hear all these voices that might have a different opinion or not. If it's or not, that's fantastic. What I find though is very helpful is particularly in terms of um, again, a lot of the things to do with the spiritual life are suddenly out of date. It's like we've jumped forward now, we're all in a new consciousness, and what was before it doesn't apply anymore. So the idea of the spiritual path, no, there's no path. It's all now. It's all available now. It's not linear. It was in the past, but not anymore. This is again just my perspective. Um, the idea of the old kind of model of the master and the student, and you have to work really hard and do all this stuff, and then all going well, if you're lucky, you'll get enlightened. That doesn't apply anymore either. Is the time of the master sitting up on the podium giving forth, that's all finished now as well. It's like everyone, it's all come up, everything has come up, consciousness has come up, so it's kind of much more level playing field where you can get help for sure, but you get help in the same way as you get help from a friend, because it seems to me it's really important now to get up close and personal to people that you feel like are, sort of get the master down off the podium so you can sit beside him, have a cup of tea, and go, you know what, we're not that different. I'm probably there too, to get there straight away. Um, but the for yourself, uh, and because you have kids, you think about your kids when they were babies, like just really, 1 week, 2 weeks old. Um, you didn't expect anything of them. You didn't expect them to do anything. You didn't expect them to work hard, uh, try, strive, better themselves. You're just very when we're around babies, or when I'm around babies, you're just really with the natural process of life, which is that this little creature is perfect in the place that it is right now. Right now, it's a baby. Yeah, I know they might grow up to be a whatever is, people like to grow up to be like an astronaut or a CEO or a great singer or a great artist or whatever. But right now, they're just a little baby, and I don't have any expectations of them being anything other than the way they are. And I just love them, and there's no conditions. It just pours out of me. So uh, that's the way I feel about myself. And that's the way I encourage everybody to feel about themselves as well. Because um, if you can feel that for yourself, meaning you can appreciate you just exactly where you're at, and that you will be different tomorrow, and you were different yesterday, and the more you stretch that out, like 10 years ago I was a different person, so that must mean in 10 years I'm going to be a different person. Now what we can tend to do is kind of go, well, that must mean I'm really, because 10 years ago I was really stupid, which means in 10 years time I'm going to look back at me now and think I was really stupid as well, so that means I'm really stupid right now. Which is not helpful and not true either, because it would be, again, if I come back to the baby, it'd be like looking at a baby going, yeah, big deal, you can't do anything, you can't clean yourself, you can't feed yourself, come back to me when you're 20 and maybe I'll be slightly impressed by you. You'd never think like that with the baby, but that's kind of the way we think about ourselves, in everything. So in terms of spiritual growth and spiritual life, I would encourage you to think of it in those terms. Or another analogy I like thinking about is, if you could, like say you get a seed and then you plant it and it grows and becomes a big oak tree, right? Now, if you could listen in, if you had some device that you could listen into the internal conversation of that seed, sapling, small tree, bigger tree, and if you were listening into it as it was a sapling and it was going, oh, I'm so pathetic, I'm so floppy, I'm just rubbish, like, why haven't I a big tree? Well, you'd be like shocked and go, well, that's just, that's going to happen, but you are what you are right now. You're fine. You were a seed, or if you were listening to the seed and the seed was like, oh, I'm so pathetic, I'm so small, what's wrong with me? But you'd never think that, or you'd never, if you heard that seed, sapling, small tree giving itself a hard time the way we do, you'd think it was ridiculous. But yet for ourselves, it's like, oh no, yeah, for me it's okay to expect myself to be completely something that I'm not right now. Does that make sense?
That's an amazing way to put it. That's a very good way to put it. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you are doing great.
I am, and there's room for growth. Yes, I
but
am.
but it's it, but it's like, yeah, but it's a continually moving thing. Like you can't help but grow. It's just going to happen. So you may as well enjoy it. Like it's like whenever I discover myself doing something ridiculous or thinking something ridiculous, like it's like I usually just laugh. And not in a kind of hysterical, crazy laugh. I mean, it's amusing for one thing, but it's particularly, if it's really close to the bone, some cherished little belief about myself that I have that I suddenly discover, or I realize about myself. Um, it's like I've got no judgment about that at all. It's just like, oh well, there's another bit of unconsciousness that's just been transformed, and yeah, I'm sure there's loads more, but it's all happening as it's supposed to, and in the right time and in the right place. So that makes me very comfortable in an uncomfortable process, because I always feel like I'm right up on the edge of my unconsciousness. Like it feels to me, and just from my observation of working with lots of people over the years, and these are just kind of, you know, concepts I've kind of, it's like an idea just to package this, but it feels like, we all seem to have a quota of unconsciousness that we decide we're going to take on. So it's almost like, we're having these big blocks of ice, or let's say ice because it melts. That's a good way of thinking about it. So like, oh yeah, I'll take this much unconsciousness, and all the way through my life, I'll work away at transforming this unconsciousness into consciousness. Unconsciousness and love, same thing as I see it. And some people get, a lot of unconsciousness to work with, and other people get, not a huge amount. And we just spend our lives just beaming and shining on this thing and helping to transform it into consciousness. And I always feel like I'm right on the edge of that. I'm right up against my unconsciousness. So it doesn't matter how much how conscious I become, I'm still at the coal face of, yeah, that transforming process. You know.
You'd say that's your life work, and that's what you're.
Well, it doesn't feel like work. It just feels like, that's what seems to be happening. It's more of an observation, um, as I see it, like with myself and with other people. I mean, with other people, it's always from the outside, so I don't really know what's going on. But certainly from myself, yeah, that's what it feels like is going on. But I don't feel like I have to, like the idea of work. Um, yeah, it does. It feels like whether I did it or not, it would still go on. Like whether I was consciously, yes, I'm definitely going to work away at my unconscious consciousness, or no, I'm going to have a little holiday from it. I mean, sometimes I get exasperated by it and go, God, is there no holidays in the spiritual life? It's relentless. And in a way, there isn't. It just goes on. But I'm quite easy in it, in that I know that whether I think I'm engaged with it or not, it's still going on. So there isn't. It's again a paradoxical thing of I I do have to be involved in it, but then it will go on whether I'm not involved in it, because I've had periods in my life where I've gone off on what seemed like very unconscious loops where, like I did Amway for a year. I sold Amway for a year, which on hindsight was like, wow, that was a very, that was a real, it seemed like a sidetrack. I mean, it doesn't, it just seems like that. But it seemed like a very unusual thing for me to do. And then I kind of almost came back to the point I was at before I went off and did all that. But I was changed by it. But if you know what I mean, like at that, when I was involved in that, I was very um, brainwashed, I suppose. Like I feel like I've been in a few cults in my life, and like I just, they're by my own definition, like cults for me are organizations or groups where everything is facing in, and it's like us, and then everyone else is different. So I've been in a few, and it's got their own little languages and all sort of way of thinking. So I've been in a few of those, and they've been helpful and everything, but it still went on, even when I felt like I was very removed from myself. I think Amway was probably the worst, when I'd look in the mirror and I just couldn't recognize myself at all. I was so away from who I know I am in my heart. But even with all that, it still goes on. Growth still goes on. Consciousness still gets, transformed by unconsciousness. That's my experience of it, anyway.
Yeah, it's lovely. You make it sound like it's, even though it's not really work, it's just what we are doing, and if we do it with the right intention, and with love and whatever that means, but with the right intention to change for the better, then that's all you can do in life. That's every day.
Yeah, yeah, but it's just like I keep coming back to the baby thing. The baby's not doing any work. It's just being. And same, that's why it's a paradox. On the one hand, I'm engaged in it, and because I'm meditating, I'm getting these communications from that mysterious place of, maybe you should, like that's how this all started. This further emergence stuff started. It was because I meditate during the day anyway. I've been doing it for years, and in the middle of it, it was like this just popped into my head, and I talked last week about being able to tell the difference between, thoughts that feel like they're really, portentous and, important, which actually just were triggered by a dog barking down the road. And I'm not talking about that, but this, when I get a communication from this very mysterious place, it just comes fully formed with nothing on either side of it. So yeah, I'm in the middle of meditating, and I just get this idea of like, you should do this on Instagram Live. I was like, what? That's the worst idea I've ever had. But it just kept, I kind of knew it was coming from that place, and I kind of resisted probably for a couple of days. Made lots of excuses, like I haven't got anywhere to do it, and the timing, and blah blah blah. Blah. But eventually, I kind of knew I was going to do it as soon as it popped into my head. And then, yeah, one thing led to another, and um, here I am talking about this stuff. But yeah, that's
Really, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but really quickly. So sort of the way you describe it is like we're all like oysters, like on the bottom of the ocean. And whether what we're conscious or not, we're filtering out the junk. We're filtering. So our consciousness is here as a filter to filter through something that's from a higher place or the unconscious, like whether or not we're conscious of it, we're still doing it.
no, I don't see it like that. I see it almost as alchemical, that the unconsciousness is like I'm saying ice because it's easy to kind of understand ice turning back into water, but I don't really think it's like ice. It's like dense. I mean, oh my God, hang on. There's another bit of music. Wow, that's completely blasted out what I was thinking about. Oh yeah. Instead of ice, it feels like denseness. I mean, like for me, if I've come across unconsciousness, either in myself or other people, it always has that very thick, heavy kind of quality, very, dark, murky, all this stuff. And then it doesn't disappear. It transmutes. It's like, if there was this much unconsciousness, and let's say from here back was like, to infinity of consciousness, at this edge, as it transmutes, it's like there's a little bit less unconsciousness and a little bit more consciousness. That's what it feels like. It's like it's transmuting. That's what I meant about it being an alchemical. It feels like an alchemical kind of process. It's transmuting unconsciousness, and in its place there's more consciousness, because that's certainly the way it feels inside me. um, because yeah, the idea of filtering doesn't, yeah, no, that doesn't resonate with me.
Well, you're saying, but we're doing it whether or not we're consciously doing it. We are, that is our
it's
job in
it's
life.
it's happening, yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah.
interesting.
Yeah, and then it seems like the more conscious you are of that, the more um, well, I've known a few people who've died, and I've been with them close, in the process of dying, and it seems like whatever you don't process, as you're dying and then you get close to dying, it all comes together, like it all comes at the same time. And I have a feeling that that's where all the ideas about hell and judgments and all that kind of stuff comes from, is in those last moments of life, whatever you didn't process comes through you or something. I think that's why people talk about how painful it can be. So being actively engaged with it in your life, it, even though it can be very difficult, and you can have the kind of feelings that you talked about at the beginning of feeling dislocated and connected and out of place, and why does nobody else get this stuff? That those are not pleasant feelings. I know them. I know them very well. Um, but given a choice, I would rather this, uh, because I know I've been around people who are not engaged in this kind of thing, and it looks to me like it's all catches up with them in one way or another, and they're kind of forced into it. And in a way, that's kind of what's happening at the moment. Is a lot of people are being forced to, like what exactly what you said about your parents. Like, you looked at another way, you could say your parents are being forced into vipassana or some sort of retreat, where they have to do introspection that they maybe have never done before. I'm not saying that about your parents, but it's what I observed in people here in Ireland in lockdown. Like pretty much the first week of lockdown, because I am kind of connected in many ways to people behind the scenes. Like, I pick up on things, and I could feel like everybody. There's two things were happening. People were like, I found myself doing it as well, just staring out the window, like just gazing out the window. Combination of that, and that would be mixed with this huge kind of feeling of, I'm going to do all these projects around the house. I mean, I work from home, so it was no different to me. And part of me was looking at me going, I'm going to build that thing over there and do this other thing over here, going, with what time? Like, where's the time going to come to do that? And why do we suddenly want to do that now? And that was me picking up on what was going on. And then each week it was a different thing. Like, there was one week where everybody just decided to go drinking. Like, there was huge mountains of bottles and cans at all the recycling depots. All these processes that people were going through because they were being forced to reflect on themselves and on things that they hadn't. And it just looked painful to me.
Really, I have really three questions. One is, why is that happening right now? Or one comment was, King Solomon said the pain is the origin of all suffering, and I really think that that's some ways what you're talking about. The other thing is, my teacher said when you die, it's like you have your body, you have all the things you want, like you want food, you want clothes, you want to whatever you like to do, drink, and you have all these desires, but you no longer have a way to satiate it. And in a way, this has been like a preparation for death, God forbid, but like I can't go out, I can't see friends, I can't go do things that I used to do, I can't. So it's like your body has the desires, but that's what I was told, you need to get rid of the desires before you pass, or else you pass. Imagine somebody who's a chain smoker, suddenly they don't have a body. They still want cigarettes, but they don't have a body to smoke with. So that's a frightening thought. So yeah, there's a lot going on right now. And yet this is the first conversation I've had that's actively addressing these things. Thank you.
You're welcome. Yeah, well, I've been talking about them pretty much the whole time, because it's so unusual for it to be happening outside, and I suppose people like me and the other people who come, are interested in this, because I've been dealing with it when it wasn't going on the outside. Um, I've kind of have seen things about it in myself, and it seems like that part of this thing coming up in me to yeah, you should do that on Instagram, and then you should see people one to one, and you should do the Zoom groups and all that, is to say, well, look, I've been having a look at this stuff for years, and this might help, or that might help, or whatever. All right. Anything else, Lindsay, before I
We've gone
go?
over a lot, but I hope to be able to join these at least somewhat regularly, if not regularly, and try to get the meditations when I can, because it's nice to have somebody to talk to who's, in a similar, hemisphere. I seem to.
Yeah, yeah. You can look at the previous the videos. It's all online. It's all on YouTube. The previous Zoom groups where I talk about all the similar kind of things. And yeah, or the
Do you have any idea why now this is happening in the world?
Well, I think it started years ago. I think it started years ago. It's been coming a long time, actually. It feels like, um, but it kind of, I wasn't sure if it would ever happen actually, but I could sort of feel um, the, um, the roots of it happened a long time ago, and you could kind of look on the external things and see, but there's a like what it looks like is there's a lot of um, unconsciousness that was we were kind of getting away with that we just can't get away with anymore. So things like, say, to do with the climate and the planet and the way we relate to nature and the way we make our food, the way we make things, the way our economies, is has to keep growing. You know, the way we, you know, say eat meat, the way like even just say eating meat, for example, the way that if somebody had to go and actually kill an animal to eat, everyone would become vegetarian. A lot of people would become vegetarian very quickly. You know.
Semi-vegetarian, yeah.
Yeah, but that's so that's an issue of consciousness. It's like, well, because there's no cute little lamb in the supermarket that I have to get a knife and kill to have my lamb chops. It just comes in this package that you know that package is basically unconsciousness made manifest, right? So there's a lot of things like that going on, that it's like there's that are the level of consciousness has reached a point now where it's everyone is going, no, they can't do that anymore. No, like say with Greta Thunberg, and like just this young girl, really, when she started going, no, 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 we can't do that. We have to actually do something about it. That wouldn't happen 10 years ago. Or if she did, she'd just be there. She'd just be outside the Swedish Parliament on her own. She'd still be there. Nobody would have cared. It just wouldn't have, because how long has Greenpeace been going? How long has all those things? It's like it's all timely. So I think that's kind of why it's happening now. It's like the general consciousness. I know whenever I talk to younger people, I'm not saying younger people are all really together, but they just seem much more conscious than like my daughter is 27. Like she's way more conscious than I was at 27. And younger kids, like say Greta, and there's loads of kids doing amazing things that at that age I wasn't. So I think there's a lot more consciousness here, which is understandable. Like that's the process, as I was saying, of consciousness informing unconsciousness. So it's like it's bubbled over now into and highlighting all sorts of things, because we're still kind of um, in the reactive phase in many ways. But who would have thought that a a something like the cold and flu would highlight such divisions, say in America, with the mask wearing and the not mask wearing. I mean, if you told somebody that like a year ago, they'd fall around laughing. It sounds ridiculous. Now it's like, very serious. So that's, again, it's just highlighting consciousness, unconsciousness, and going, yeah, no, 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 we can't keep going with that. We have to shine the light on it. So shine the light on the racial injustice that's happening in America, the refugees that are happening in the Mediterranean, and all sorts of things all over the world are suddenly having the spotlight of consciousness put on them. That's what it looks like to me, anyway.
Very true. Very sage words. It's been lovely to meet you, Dalton, or John.
Thank you, John. Yeah, John's fine. Yeah, you too, Lindsay. Okay, so we wrap it up there. But yeah, you're doing great. If you're watching this video, you're doing great, and it's a nice thing to tell people. It's amazing. I just stumbled upon it But any chance I get now in a conversation, say, "Oh yeah, I just want to tell you, I think you're doing great." You see the people's shoulders dropping, and they go, "Really?" It's like everybody wants to hear that right now. And it's true. Everyone is doing great. So yeah, you're watching the video, you're doing great. And yeah, Kathy, you're doing great. Lindsay, you're doing great. John, you're doing great. Okay, all right. So thanks for joining me, and yeah, maybe I'll see you next week. Yeah, you're welcome, Kathy. Okay, bye.